Welcome to the Gals Guide podcast. Join us on an adventure to get to know famous and infamous women from around the world. Each of our presenters has a pick. Is she ancient history? Is she breaking news? Is she safe for work? Well, that's up to each presenter. All we know is that...
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Welcome back. I am Riwo, and I am joined by Cami and Bonnie, and we are sharing our Japanese gal pick. So Bonnie already talked about Kamiko Kimura, right? Wait, I did it wrong, didn't I? Komako
Kimura.
There we go. Yes. And Otto. Cami already talked about Otto. But before we dive back in, I want to get to know something random about our gal pals. We've been having quite fun with this one. I want to know your favorite Japanese celebrity. So either comic or actor or actress, musician or YouTuber. What did you guys find? Dun, dun, dun.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm going to pick, gosh, and I don't even know how to pronounce her name.
This is why we have Cami.
And which one goes first?
Oh, yeah, right?
Oh. Nako Takeuchi, the lady who wrote Sailor Moon.
Oh, yes, there you go. Oh, yeah, no, that's a perfect one. Yes,
who's
yes,
married
100%.
to another manga artist.
Oh my god,
who's
insane,
Hunter,
yes.
Hunter or something?
Yeah, Hunter x Hunter,
Yeah.
and he's always ill, always crazy. She would write the stuff for him when he was ill.
Nice.
So she is essentially partial credit on that. Naoko Takeuchi sensei. She's amazing. Love her.
See?
She wrote the friends that she would want to have.
Exactly. You're like, I totally get this, and I want to be one of your friends. Exactly. Send Bonnie a pin. That's what we're saying. That is perfect. Yes. Cami, do you have 1 or 7? What do you got?
I mean,
like
I could name J-pop artists all day. If I have to choose an absolute favorite, it is Natori.
Yeah.
I have bought his album so that I could get all of the special little stuff sent to me because I love him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Yoasobi, Eve, Rokushoko Sakai, Kiro Akiyama, Vondi, love Vondi with my whole heart, Wanuka, Imase, Yorushika, Rokudenashi, Ken Nasuda, I mean, of course, Aldo. I could keep going all day.
Right, exactly.
I love all
Lots
of them.
Lots of faves.
I love all of them. And please, J-pop artists, just please come to the US.
Yes.
Please do tours here. I will die and I will buy all of your stuff. Please.
Yes. Cami will spend the money.
I will.
They need to perform at Gen Con.
I know, that would be amazing. What was the one that just happened? Coachella.
Yeah,
there was
Yoasobi.
a few artists that were at Coachella.
Yeah, Yoasobi, Atarashi Gakko, which I haven't listened to Atarashi Gakko, but I have listened to Yoasobi. I mean, Miku is at Coachella because, I mean, Miku can go anywhere because, I mean, it's Miku, but yeah.
Yeah. Is that the one that's totally a computer?
Yeah, that's Hatsune
it's
Miku.
totally
Yeah.
a computer. So it's a holograph or a hologram image that is performing on stage.
I mean, Yoasobi is going to be in
Who
New
gets
York.
paid for that?
I know, right? Well, the
company
people
that
who
made her.
Yeah, the company.
How do the taxes work?
Right. I just want to see the W-9. I dig it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is very true. Man, I racked my brain on a lot, and I kept coming back to Ken Watanabe. Every time he's kind of like, when he shows up in a movie, I'll be like, oh, Ken's in this? Oh, it's going to be good. Like, I just see the name come up on the screen. He leads a few movies, like the recent Godzilla movies. He's one of the leads, or sometimes he's, the also starring sort of thing. But he'll carry it. But even like Inception, he shows up in that one as well. And The Creator, he showed up in The Creator, and I went, oh, okay, I'm going to like this. He wasn't one of the main people. So just like anytime he shows up in something, he makes me smile. He has this very commanding, like pissed off looking presence and face. But then his character always has this little bit of sarcasm or wit or lightness about him. That. And I really don't see that many interviews with Ken Watanabe, so I do not know what his baseline personality is. But I just imagine that he's a really, really fun guy. And that's what, kind of comes through in some of the serious performances that are in. I mean, he shows up in the Pokemon movie too. I mean,
oh my goodness, does he really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's like, here, you want to see?
No, show me the credit.
Yeah,
Detective Pikachu. So
he was in the live action. Okay.
Yes, he was in the live action one. But yes, there you go. Scroll through his glorious. He's been in tons of stuff. And like I said, so I picked him as my favorite because it just, when he pops up, I'm very joyous about it. And
Yeah, that's lovely.
he's adorkable is my term for it. Other people would be like, oh, but he's, he's fierce, he's stern, he's knowledgeable, he's a commanding presence.
Still
Yeah.
adorable.
And adorable.
He's also in Memoirs of a Geisha.
See?
Is
Yes.
that like the point that everyone's involved
It
in
could be.
Memoirs of a Geisha?
Right. Well, or that could be the leading to more American films, you know what I mean, as well. So that through point of international films to American films, or just they cast everyone who was Asian in Memoirs of a Geisha, which should be the fact all the time. But Shogun, the show that's out right now, it's casting so many Asian Americans and international as well. A lot of Japanese actors. They're not my favorite yet because I've only seen them in the one thing, Shogun. So it's like, oh man, I want to see them in more stuff. And that actually does tie into my lady.
Oh my goodness, oh my goodness.
Look at that. So I have for you a woman warrior.
Nice.
And it does tie into Shogun as well. So she was taught defense and offense.
Yes.
Not all women were taught offense. So she was on the battlefield with the samurai. She beheaded a lot of men.
Nice.
And she was part of the conflict that led to the first shogunate. So the first shogun, she was part of that process, and I will totally tell you more about it. But her name is Tomoe Gozen. So that is the glorious lady I have for you. So I also have to thank Tofu Gu for their amazing article. I really wanted to call them out, and I'll put it in the show notes too, because on Tomoe Gozen, she is a badass woman of history, but she's also very mythology and also a lot of she's in video games too. So there's video games, there's also novelization. So separating this, what did people make up about her versus what is her history was really complicated. Also on top of keeping in mind, this was a time in Japan where it was a warring culture. And I'm more familiar with the Buddhist, Taoist, Confucianism. Let's just say a little bit more peaceful, mindful, meditative aspects of Japan. So this was not in my wheelhouse. So I really relied on them and I was very thankful. But the time period I'm talking about is the 1100s. So I'm going way back. And it's in the Kamakura period. And if you watch Shogun or have read it or are thinking about watching it, that's in the 1600s. So this is like 500 years before all of that. And if you are listening and going, what the hell is a shogun? It's a ruler. It's a military dictatorship. It's basically a clan takes over as leaders. And then it is through heredity passed on to the next if they survive. So there's the emperor, which is the heavenly sovereign. And at this time, we're talking about Shinto. So the heavenly priest, you know what I mean, of Shinto is the emperor. And then the shogun is the military, judicial, badassery power. So that's the difference. And they fought a lot for many hundreds of years over who was in charge.
Like
warring.
you do.
Like you do. Yes, exactly. So definitely during this feudal Japan, this warring Japan, women at this time were taught how to fight defensively because everybody was taking stuff and battling outside. So they needed to know how to defend their home, defend their lands, defend their people. And it was also the age of samurai. So this was very much heavy in that samurai time. So Tomoe was skilled in martial arts, in archery, in longsword, and horse riding. She was an onna-musha, which meant that she was not only skilled at being defensive, but also offensive in battle too. Now, there's not a lot known about her early time, like before she was a badass warrior. She was possibly a servant, a lover, and a wife of Minamoto Yoshinaka. And later on, he's going to try to be shogun, by the way. So she was very much around the guy that wanted to become the next shogun and rule everything.
I figured it was just like a Chuck Norris situation.
Right.
She was just born
Yes,
badass.
exactly. I mean, in my head, yes. And possibly in some of the video games, yes. So I did find some information about her heritage from the University of Hawaii. It was said that Tomoe's mother was is it Menoto? Let me see here. Hold on. I'm gonna ask a friend. That one.
Menoto.
Menoto. Okay. All right. There. I overthought it. There is what I did. But it means that she grew up with the future clan leader, Yoshinaka. They were not blood related. So her mother was basically, they said wet nurse, but it was more than that. It was kind of like the nanny, the educator, took care of all of the little clan kids who will one day be rulers. So she grew up with all of them. So they're not blood related, but they're really close in social class as well. So Yoshinaka engaged in politics and in battle, and he took Tomoe with her, which was really neat. So Tomoe was a commander in the Genpei War. She led on her own 1,000 cavalrymen to victory.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, right? So the Genpei War is two clans that were battling it out for rule. So there's the Minamoto clan, and then there's the Taira clan. So those were the two that were trying to get power. In this war, these are like her claim to fame or, hit points or best bits. She was in a battle and collected 7 heads. In this time, Tofugu describes it in a time and a place where head collections were coveted like Oscar trophies.
Oh.
They were proof of how powerful you were and who the important people you killed, because they would behead them and then they would either send them to their rivals to terrify their rivals, or they would put them on stakes as, look at your leaders, they are now dead, don't mess with us. So it was meant to send a message.
Very strong message.
A very strong message, right? Beheadings usually, send a very clear message. In the years of the battle, she led 300 soldiers against 6,000 soldiers. So it's another 300 story. Like, there's always another 300 story. But she survived with only 4 other people. So 300 against 6,000, 4 survived. 5 survived. She is one of them. Yeah. So she be fierce and good. So the Genpei War is then near its end, and it looks like Tomoe's clan is actually going to win. They're going to take over Japan. But that is when you cue in the family drama. So you start to have a cousin versus cousin of like, oh, our clan's going to win. Yay. But which of us are actually going to lead it? So then that leads into who will be the next shogun, which cousin will win out. So there's Yashinaka and there's Yoratoma. And those are the epic cousin battles that are happening. So it's the Battle of Azua, and it's not really looking good for my lady's dude. It's just, they're not winning. It's not doing good. The other cousins looks like it's probably going to happen. There's like 5 warriors left. I mean, she's one of them. So amazing. But there's a couple of different versions of like what happens at the end of this battle. So one of the versions of the story goes is that her dude, Yoshinaka, asks her to quit and leave the battlefield. And because you see, at the end of the day, she's still a woman at the end of losing. So even though she has proven herself in battle, is it this case of it's still worse to lose with a woman warrior fighting for you than it is just to lose? Yeah, right? It could also be framed that he would be mean to keep a woman there who will lose, who will die.
Yeah.
So it could be taken as that. That's not usually the way it's written.
Yeah. It could be chivalrous, but it also really couldn't.
It really
It would have been fine with her dying all the other times.
Right. Exactly. That's what's interesting. It's not like, oh, no, you get a pass. And so it worries me either way.
Fair.
Because it's about him not looking bad. You know, the idea of excusing her from the battlefield. Either way, it's
really
about his
bad when
benefit.
She stabs him for opening his mouth.
So do you want to know what she did instead?
Oh, no.
So what she did is she said she would leave if she could engage in one final battle. If she could prove herself worthy. I think of it as a big fuck you. I'm going to go out on my own highfalutin. So she got on horseback. There were 30 riders that were approaching from the opposing side. And so she picked the strongest, biggest one. He was actually known for his strength. She galloped up to him. She grabbed the strong one. She pulled him down and had his head right by her saddle, and then twisted his head off.
Oh.
And threw it away.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, you know, so her dude, which was her husband, lover, commander, you know, all these glorious things, he died soon after. There are versions where he's wounded and then he dies. There are also versions where he takes his own life. His cousin, Minamoto no Yamato, becomes the first shogun and rules from 1192 to 1199. So 7 years. They don't last long as shoguns.
All that fighting. 7 years.
For 7 years, right? Until somebody else decides, no, me once.
More fighting.
So then what happens to Tomoe is kind of a mystery. Some say she was captured and she gave birth to legendary strongmen. The idea that her warrior lineage was then, you know, continued. People would say, oh no, I am born from, you know, Tomoe Gozen. You know, that was that
Spartan woman
yes,
thing.
Exactly. There's also stories that she became a Buddhist nun, that she recited sutras on behalf of her love until her death at the ripe old age of 91. Sure. There are also stories of her becoming an avenger and killing those who were against her lover.
Lovely.
Stealing her lover's head back at one point, and then walking into the sea and drowning herself.
Oh, okay.
Right? These are epic tales.
So many heads.
Exactly. A lot of heads. Yeah, I know. If you've learned nothing today.
There's never like an ear or a toe. It's
No.
only heads.
No, just heads. That's the most important bit. That's the, you know, the part that you recognize. Yeah, exactly. So she is a legend. There are kabuki theater plays about her. There are TV shows. There are video games. There are novels, and there's also manga that are all inspired by her. Each year, there's also the Festival of Ages in Kyoto. This is one of 3 great festivals. I just learned about this. It takes place on October 22nd of every year. And it's the largest parade featuring 2,000 people dressed up as historical figures in Japan. And we did the history fair where we dressed up as famous people. Like, this is a whole festival.
Oh my god, I'd love to see that.
Dedicated to doing that. Yeah, so the Festival of Ages is where you will most likely see someone dressed up and on horseback as Tomoe Gozen, and it's amazing. She also has 2 temple grave sites. One is in Shinga and the other is in Nagano. There's a couple of different stories of why she has 2. One of them is said that that's where she became a Buddhist nun and did her sutras at. Another one is said of that is where her lover was buried, and so she wanted to be with him as well. But there are 2 places that say that are her grave sites and have a temple to her. But her historical story is mostly found in the Tale of Heike. It's a war epic, and it was told by blind priests. I love nothing more than a story told to me by blind priests. So they were entertainers, and they took the Genpei War as that struggle between clans. And the Tofugu article says that, quote, emphasizing this tragic downfall of the Taira family as a metaphor for the Buddhist philosophy and transitory nature of all things. I mean, because they were priests, after all. Yeah. So they were very much using that story. So she shows up in chapter 4, and here's how she's introduced, because it's just too good to not share it word for word. So, Kiso no Yokonaka had brought with him from a shinao 2 female attendants, Tomo and Yakabuki. Yamabuki had fallen ill and stayed in the capital. Of the 2, Tomo was especially beautiful, with her white skin, long hair, and charming features. She was also remarkably a strong archer and a swordsman, and she was a warrior worth 1,000, ready to confront a demon or a god, mounted or on foot. She handled unbroken horses with superb skill. She rode an unscathed perilous descents. Wherever there was a battle was imminent, Yoshinaka sent her out as his first captain, equipped with strong armor, an oversized sword, and a mighty bow. And she performed more deeds of valor than any of his other warriors. Thus, she was known as one of the 7 who remained after all of the others had fled or perished.
Nice.
That is how she is introduced. It is about how beautiful she is first, of course.
I mean, but it gets there. It gets there.
Right, exactly. You get some of her accomplishments in it, so yes. There is far more about her and about this time in Japanese history, too, so I'll put that glorious link in the show notes, because they even have, like, they have paintings and they have like the stamp art, and it's really gorgeous. So I'm glad I took this like basically tangent from watching Shogun, because I'm like in a show hole. I watched all of it and I really, really loved it. I highly recommend it. It's on Hulu, it's on Disney Plus, and it's an FX show, so it was on FX too. But just learning more about Japanese women in general, I highly recommend, because there's quite a few badasses, like as we've talked about this month, to learn about, and they don't always have biographies or books about them. They kind of keep that reserved, so it's, you know, it's up to all of us to kind of find those stories and share those stories of Japanese women, so I dig it. Yeah. So, Tomoe Gozen. Exactly. The warrior who really likes beheading people. Sweet. Any questions? Or do you want me to wrap it up?
I think you're good.
All right. Well, then I shall totally wrap us up. And because next week is Memorial Day, I'm going to actually wrap us up for the month. So that wraps up Japan month. Join us in 2 weeks as we get our passports ready, because we are going to explore the diverse marine life, the vibrant culture, and the beautiful beaches of the Caribbean. And yes, there will be rum. Want to learn about more women of history? Gal's Guide opened a unique women's history lending library. Come visit and explore our collection. Learn more at galsguide.org. Thanks for listening.